So we're here today to talk about the different ways of feeding with hard pellets on a line. Now we're here at Western Pools and we're on the Weir pool, and it's just been stocked with lots of stocky carp and F1s. There's also loads of big carp and loads of big F1s, but I'm just here to basically run you through the different ways and the different ways of feeding hard pellets and how to get the best out of it in your swim. So we're just fishing the long pole today, and basically we've just got a very standard rig on. We've just got a 4x14 F1 maggot, a carbon stem float, so when you flick it in you can follow your rig through the water, and it's just on 017 mainline, one number 9 back shot, and just a bulk of number 8s and 2 number 9 droppers. And the hook length we've actually got on, they're quite angry here. We're only fishing for fish like between £1 and £3, but I've actually got 013 power line to a 16 km, and we're just fishing 6mm banded pellets. Now the elastic, it's actually 13 Duraslip as well. You might think it's a bit heavy, but you'll see the fish are very, very angry here. And the fishery here, they have their own pellets, so it's fishery only pellets. And basically, while Tom's been setting the cameras up, I've just been feeding a few with a catapult, pinging a few pellets like you would be in a match. Now, if it was a match and I was just starting to go on that line, what I like to do after pinging it for a while is just start with a little cad pot, because what that does, I think, is any fish in the area, it just tightens them up and it might give you a faster bite. And I like to start on one of these small grey, it's an old Preston one. They do them in the white plastic now, but I've got these old grey ones. They're a little bit lighter in material, and when you're fishing a long pole, a lighter pot on the end just makes it less wobbly basically. It's just a bit stiffer, so we'll just start with him on the pole. And what I like to do is, I can't feed only 3 or 4 pellets. I'm not confident enough to do that. So I like to feed like 10 pellets to start with. That's my go-to amount. And these pellets here at Western Pools are just Skrettings. So we've just got 10 6mm Skrettings pellets in the pot. And what I like to do before I ship out is, because they are Skrettings ones, quite a lot of them tend to float now and again. So when I just want to feed with a little pot and make them into a tight little area, what I do before I ship out is just give it a little dunk under the water. And it's just so when I go out and feed them, they just sink through the water tension and obviously sink to the bottom. And I forgot to tell you, on the hook here, I just carry my own pots of pellets to all these different venues. I've got red ones, 8mm ones, 6mm ones, 4mm ones, all different colours and sizes. But I've just got a Coppin 6mm in the band at the minute. It just breaks down a bit slower, and means I can basically fish for longer without having to come back and change my pellets. So we'll just ship him out now. And basically, before we've gone out here, we've just been feeding the catapult just to get a few in the area. But now, as we're just starting, I'd like to just tighten them up with this little pot, like I said. So we'll get to a little far bank marker, and this carbon stem, you'll see it'll just follow my rig through the water. I like to flick it past my spot like that, let it just sink naturally. And because we're just starting, I don't know if any fish are there, you're going to see I'm going to feed with a pot about a foot off the water and just tap them in one little spot like that, and just put my rig over the top like that, so it straightens up right over it, wait for it to straighten, and then just drop it straight on the little pile. So I'm fishing as accurate as I can, and now I put my back shot level with the water like that, just in a little spot, keeping my float right over the pile. And we're just going to start like this and see what response we get. We're not going to feed anything over the top. We're just going to fish over these 10 pellets. Obviously we've been feeding them with a catapult for a little while, so I'd like to think there's a few fish in the area, but I give it, personally, I'm just going to give it 5 minutes with this little pot and see if we get any indications and see what happens. Now, obviously, if nothing happens, we need to make a bit of noise, and that's when I'm going to pick my catapult way up. But we've had a sign with a little pot like that, so we're just going to give it another little go, dropping back in. I think this lake's, it's been stocked all winter, so I think there's loads of fish in here, so they should be hungry, and we shouldn't take long to get some indications, and then we can read how we want to feed in the peg. Now, we might not be feeding enough pellets. I hope that's perfect. So we've just fed 10 pellets there, and we've caught a fish. We had one indication before, and then we nailed him in the mouth. So it's just a little stocky one to start with. We'll ship him in and get him in. There he is. These are the new fish I'm on about. Now this is probably a pound F1, and he's hooked. Absolutely perfect in the top lip. Now we'll just get him out if we can. Like there, look, that's the new little stockfish at Western Pools. Loads of them gone in here over the winter. They've been, you can see the photos on the Facebook page, and they're stocking it all the time with new fish. So, because it worked perfectly that time, we'll just have another go and see if it goes under again like that. Because that was perfect. You know, you want to be getting some indications, but you don't want to be getting loads of indications. It was just a happy medium, and see if we can band a pellet. Quite tricky when your hands are wet sometimes, but we managed it. So yeah, that worked perfect that time. So we'll do the same again. 10 of the 6 mils in my little pot. Put them in. Dunk them under the water before you go out. And obviously when you are catching, you want to get in a bit of a routine. You want to do the same thing every single chuck. So just follow the same stuff every time. Get out to your far bank marker like we are now. Flick your rig past. Let it all fall in. Feed your bait about a foot off the water I did last time, so we'll do the same again. One little spot. Hold your float over the top until it all straightens up. And then just drop them in over the top. So now we've sat there waiting for another bite. And we'll just see what happens. You know, as long as it's always going under like this is how we're going to feed. You know, not too much bait, but you got to bite pretty fast. I bet I was only in the water 2 minutes when I had that one, and obviously, if it's going perfectly, we'll just sit and wait. Oh, that was a sign then. This damper fish sometimes, they might want to come and sit off the bottom, but today we're just going to try and feed in different ways to keep them on the bottom. The aerator's just turned on there now. So yeah, we're just sat now waiting for a bite. Little indication again. Now this might be, we've had a few indications already. Now this might be, because they are these little F1s, they're quite hungry, and they might want to sit off the bottom. Like I've just hooked one there. So we'll ship him in. It went under quite nice, but I don't know if it's in the mouth, this one. Might have been just trying to sit off the bottom. Just another little stocky fish. Little F1, there he is. He's hooked just under the chin, this one, if you see that. It's just hooked under the chin, so not in the perfect spot. That's probably where they're trying to come off the bottom. And it might be just the fish are too tightly in one little spot, so we'll get him in and I'll show you what I do sometimes when it's like this, when you're fishing for stockies. So the pellet's oh, the pellet just come off, so we have to put a new one on. It's disappointing. So sometimes, when you are feeding with a little pot, it tightens them up too much. So what I'm going to do this chuck, is I'm still going to feed with the pot, but I'm only going to put less in. I'm going to put 6 pellets in this go. And what I'm going to do is I am going to ping some over the top, just to spread it over a little bit more of an area, so they're not all trying to eat from one little spot. Because when they are those little stocky fish, they can be quite ferocious in the way they feed. And obviously if your bait's tight in one little spot, you know, you can lead to foul lookers, and I just want to spread them over a little bit more of an area, so I'll hook them perfectly in the mouth. I was quite lucky to get that one in because it was foul looked. Now I just followed the same routine. I flipped my rig in and dropped my float over the top. But what I'm going to do this chuck is just try and spread the fish over a little bit of an area. Just try and feed over your float, not past it. You want to try and feed inside your float if you can. Sometimes it's quite difficult. Just hooked one there. Just foul up that one. Now, that might prove catapulting isn't the way to go. If we keep foul looking a few with a catapult, then obviously the pot's the way to go, because the catapult makes loads of noise. It can drag fish into the peg, but sometimes, you know, it can make too much noise. It can really drag them off the bottom. So just see how it goes with the catapult. Still got a little pile of a few. But you know, we're trying to spread the fish out just to see if we can give them over a bit of a bigger area on the bottom. Just had an indication again. You can see my yellow tip float perfectly out there in the green water. You know, you can see absolutely every little movement. There's hardly any wind today, which is lovely, you know, for dotting your float down and everything. So you can see everything perfectly today. Still just sat there waiting for a bite. Another one, another indication. That could be the catapulting, you see, pull them up off the bottom. So we might have to stop feeding with the catapult and just feed with the little pot. But we'll just see for a minute. Still a few bubbles coming up around the float. There's still a few fish in the area. But maybe that catapult was wrong, obviously. It has spread out a little bit, and it might have spread the fish out a little bit too much, so. You see, I'm getting quite a few indications on my float now, which I wasn't getting before. Last time, I had a couple of indications, but it went under pretty fast, didn't it, with the last two fish. Foul up one as soon as I fed my catapult. I'm getting a liner now. Probably shouldn't have lifted up at that, probably would have foul hooked it. I think that's foul hooked after feeding with the catapult. I think I hooked that just off the bottom, so obviously we can tell, I think it's foul hooked, it's just plodding around now. Come off, you see, so just shows that feeding with a catapult probably isn't the way to go today. You know, it's dragging the fish off the bottom, and I can tell all that in just a 5-minute spell of fishing. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go back to how we started off, because it seemed pretty good. We're just going to feed the 10 pellets, 10 6mm fishery pellets in the pot, dunk them in, and we're not going to feed with the catapult this go, you know, to see if we can keep the fish on the bottom, because obviously the first two chucks we hooked one lovely in the mouth. And this go, when I get to my marker, I'm going to flip my rig past, same as before. But what I'm going to do, look, the first two chucks I fed my pellets a foot off the water. But this time what I'm going to do is I might lower them a bit closer to the water and just try and sneak them in. Less noise so it doesn't drag the fish off the bottom. I'm just going to pull my float over the top. So it's the same routine, but where you feed the pellets from the pot, you know, what height you feed them at makes such a difference to the noise and if they're going to come off the bottom. So everything now is sneaked in as much as I possibly can now to try and keep the fish on the bottom. So we'll see this time if we get one clean in the mouth. Bubbles just come up right next to my float there. When everything is in position like this, I don't like to personally lift and drop my float too much. I like to just let it fish. Personally, I never seem to catch many fish just doing a little lift and drop. So once everything's in position, in my little trap, I just like to leave it to fish. Leave it settled and ready and it's fishing. So you can see already the difference not feeding with the catapult was made. We've not had any liners yet. Float's not really moved. Might have moved then, I couldn't really. Might have just been sitting a little bit too low there, my float. Did go under then. I could tell already my peg's a lot more settled. Like that chuck when I did feed with the catapult, I foul up 2 fish. Got loads of indications, but now float's not really moving too much. Just sat there nice for a bite. And it might be a case that if the fish are still sitting off the bottom, feeding with this little pot, we might need to feed more pellets with a pot, you know, still sneak them in, but force them to the bottom. So we can change the pot size as well and how many pellets we're feeding with the pot. Just a little indication then. Stockies in general can be a bit of a nightmare to hook nice and cleanly because they are a little bit ravenous. So we're just doing everything now to try and reduce them coming off the bottom. And if they're still sitting off the bottom feeding the 10 pellets, we might put a little bit of a bigger pot on. Perfect, got one. So yeah, we'll just try a bigger pot next chuck just to see if we can feed a few more pellets and keep them on the bottom. So angry at Western, like, this is still just a little stocky. But it's pulling out just as much here as it would be on a carp venue sometimes, fishing for £8 carp. So fight really well at Western. But yeah, still just a little stocky mirror carp this time. But yeah, as I can see already, he's hooked absolutely perfectly in the top lip. He is absolutely perfect. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Perfect little carp. So yeah, it worked. Not feeding with a catapult and just using the little pot, but this time I think we can speed it up even more if we put a bigger pot on. Just feed a little bit more bait and get more just sitting on the bottom and not fish feeding off the bottom. So we'll just change the pot size. Just moving it up to a medium. Preston do these in the white plastic ones as well, but these grey ones are just a bit lighter. Just filling up. We're probably feeding 30 pellets now, so 2 times as much as we were before. Just give them a dunk in the water. The process is still the same when we're going out there. Ship out. Flick the rig past. Feed all the pellets. I'm just sneaking them in, remember. Just level with the water. Wait for them all to come out. Pull the float up. Wait for it all to straighten above the pellets. Drop him in. Bite straight away then. And yeah, everything's ready now. My back shot's just level with the water, keeping my float perfectly over my pile. Trying to be as accurate as I can over them pellets in the pot. Just had a little bubble come up near my float. Don't think it'll be too long until we get one. I've not had any liners this go, which is a good thing. Means the fish aren't all up in the water swimming into my line, so hopefully they feed it, you know, on the bottom now, hunting for some food. No liners yet, you know, it's still just sat there patiently. But I'm quite happy with that because I know I can still tell there's fish in the peg, you know, there's odd bubbles and things coming up. It's not that there's no fish there, and you know, I don't want to have absolutely loads of indications because I'm more likely to just foul up fish off the bottom if I just fed with a catapult all day, you know, just hoping for the best. If you just put a bit of thought into what you're doing, you know, you're just going to up your catch rate so much. So hopefully we get an indication, and you never know, like, feeding with a catapult, you might have to feed with a catapult and feed with the pot and mix it up, feed with the catapult to make a bit of noise, draw a few in, feed with the pot to you know, to centralise them, and you can just change as you're fishing as well. You've always got to be thinking of what you're doing, so hopefully we get one in soon. Lots of bubbles just popped up there now where I'm fishing. That could be another reason to feed with a catapult. When it is really, really silty, when you're feeding with a pot, you know, you can get the fish grubbing in that one spot and kicking the silt up too much, and then feeding with a catapult just spreads them out a little bit and keeps the bottom a little bit cleaner. So we've not had any indications yet, but you know, I'm not too worried. It's just, you know, we've only been fishing out there for what, 2 minutes this chuck yet. And it might be that we're feeding too many pellets with this pot now for a bite, so we might want to go back to the small pot and do what we were doing. A few indications there. As you can see, by the amount of time now we've waited here, we've not really had too many indications. But we might just have fed a bit too many pellets that go, because we've not had a fast bite or anything. We've just had an indication then, didn't seem like a bite, but we might just have fed too many pellets there for the fish we're catching. So I think what we fed at the start was about right, another indication then. As you can see, this isn't right as well. It just happened to be that the way we were fed to start with probably is the best we've had so far. Feeding them a little pot, just feeding 10 pellets. So next chuck, we'll go back to that, see if we can end on one with that, because that just seemed to be the best way of feeding. I might ship back in a minute and just refeed. Because this hasn't been right, this feeding more pellets, it's just slowed me down more than feeding with the catapult. So we need to get rid of this. But you never know, if you don't experiment, you'll never realise what's the best way of doing it. So, you know, you've got to give it a little bit of a go. Got one. But you can see it took forever to catch that one, so we probably fed too many pellets for that fish. So it just happened to be that the way we started is the best, what we've had is the best way. And we can maybe try even reducing that, feeding just 3 or 4 pellets for a little go. So, you know, it's all about experimenting. And obviously feeding more pellets was wrong for now, but it might be better at any point, you know, it can change. Big F1 that go. Beautiful, beautiful big golden F1. I'll hold him up to you if I can. It's fighting, angry. Angry, still hooked in the top lip, but yeah, look at him. Lovely F1. Probably 2.5 pound. He's still hooked perfectly in the top lip. Big golden F1. So what we'll do, we'll see if we can get another one. Feeding now we fed at the start. Banded 6mm Coppins pellet. Perfectly on the band. Take this big pot off and just go back to the little one. And we'll see if we can get away with feeding now we've fed at the start, now 10 pellets. And I think this will be the best way. I think this will give us the fastest bite now. Fingers crossed it does, otherwise it makes me look a bit of an idiot. Ship him out, flick him past, like that. Feed the pellets off a bit of a height like we did at the start, you know, we want to draw one in. Sat for a little while, didn't we, when we sneaked them last ones in. Fed them off the water, just drop my float over the top, hold it in over the trap, bite straight away then. It's like they came straight up and heard the noise of the pellets dropping through. That's what we want. We want an odd sign, but we don't want too many signs. We don't want to be sat there getting no signs. You know, you have to find a happy medium. There we are, perfect. Got one. It just shows the way we started off just happened to be the right way. Fine a little bit. I have a feeling this might be a nice big F1, not one of the small ones. And they do fight really hard at Western Pools. If you ever come, you've got to have a go fishing hard pellets, some of these big carp and F1s. They fight so hard. Oh, look at him, big golden F1. I think if we get him, we'll end on him. And yeah, I hope I've shown you a few different ways and different thought processes about feeding hard pellets. It's not just about feeding with a catapult every chuck, you know, you've got to put a bit of thought into it and maximise your catches. So yeah, if you do that, you know, follow some of the tips, you can catch some beautiful F1s just like him, if he'll behave. Bit of an angry one, bit angry. So yeah, you know, follow some of the tips, you can catch some beautiful F1s just like him.